trying to find. We don't have a massive kids ministry, obviously. Not that he was looking for that, but his kids were kind of checking out, and they were like, man. So they plugged back into something more established. But yeah, I saw him this morning. Matter of fact, at Cultivate, where he and I usually meet for coffee. But and so Jamie actually Miller's on our. I called our external board of directors just because we needed his influence. And it's not an Antioch church plan, but it kind of could be. Yeah. I mean, it's basically a very structured life group in Aledo that has a different name. And so he understood the vision. Farther West.
Is that what you guys landed on it?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, so there's a neat story behind that. But yeah, so it's been, but I need to come. I said this to somebody the other day. I need to come to Antioch because I just miss it. Yeah. The worship. And I've been to the new sanctuary a few times, but I'm like, man, I got a World Mandate.
We just did World Mandate. Bryson's an intern over at Antioch, and so he just slept in for the first time because World Mandate took all of his time.
We have been running for the past couple of days, so slept in was 7:30. Hey. I have the sleep schedule of an old man, so
that's
a good thing.
When you have kids, 7:30 you're sleeping in. So.
That is, oh man, I've just started getting to that point. Wonderful.
See, but awesome. Here's the issue. I think I have a problem because I'm 23 and single, right? Like, I shouldn't be sleeping in, should be sleeping in, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's kept me out of a lot of trouble in college.
It's just preparation.
I like to say it was sanctification in Jesus, but it really just could have been the fact that I was asleep before anything happened.
Right.
All right, I'm ready to rock and roll whenever y'all are.
So I don't know about announcing the podcast. Did I just say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I did.
Have we decided our name?
Arise.
I think we just went with Arise.
I had this thought too.
Maybe 2 exclamation points or 3, so we can keep our copyrights.
Because everywhere in the Old Testament is like arise and go do something. What if it's arise and go?
I like that. Arise and go.
Could be your sub thing. Arise
and go. Yeah, but like
arise, go forth.
Yeah,
or something. We can work on the branding.
But like arise exclamation mark. Yeah, just say welcome to the Arise podcast.
Yeah. All right. So,
all right. 3, 2, 1.
Well, welcome to the Arise podcast. We're so excited you decided to join us here today. The heart behind the podcast is really to kind of highlight entrepreneurs, people in business who, in many cases, any entrepreneur that has been in business has arisen from the ashes. So hence the name of the podcast. It's the idea that we, as entrepreneurs, as leaders in the kingdom, in my opinion, we have the opportunity to rise from difficult situations, and that doesn't mean that it's easy. But our hope is that this podcast would be something that would encourage you, that would lead to maybe some fresh wind in your hearts, and as you move forward in your own endeavors. We're so excited today to have Ross Connor, a really good friend of mine, someone I look up to this day. We've known each other for what now? Maybe over 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
And just a sweet family. We live not too far away from you. And you've been a huge influence in my life, whether you realize that or not. I've learned so much from you, and I'm just so excited to share your message with the people who get to listen to our podcast here. So welcome, and thank you for being with us this morning.
You bet. Good to be here.
Yeah, so just to kind of start us off, I thought I would just kind of open the door to you and say, tell us a little about you, who you are. I know some stories, but I'm not going to tell everyone those stories, as far as how you've risen from ashes. And that is part of what has encouraged me, because you know my story. Now I've had opportunities to rise from some pretty thick ashes too. And so I would just love to open the door. If you can cover it in a fairly short period of time, because I know we could probably talk for 8 hours.
Yeah.
About your stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can be lengthy if we get into it.
It would be great. Maybe we'll have a part 3 and 4 for you as well. Understand, I already assumed we're going to have 2 parts. But yeah, so I'll just open the stage to you here.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, it's so good to be with you all. I appreciate the opportunity just to share and connect. And I love the podcast format. It's podcasts have taken up more and more of my time. There are just so many good ones that give you stories and perspective. And life's just a bunch of stories, right? I mean, that's what we're learning from. And it's, you know, there's good content out there, but somebody shared recently with me, you know, you can download and go to YouTube to find the best content, the best sermon, the best whatever you can possibly get, the best instruction ever. The world is just is replete with so much good instruction out there, especially in the Christian world. And but then when I take a step back, I'm like, the stories and how people rise from ashes. I mean, that's really what sells to me, right? In terms of what grabs my attention and what I can learn from. I've always been enamored with biographies for that very reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the train wreck biographies, like you know, one of my favorite was Waylon Jennings. I'm a huge Waylon Jennings fan. I'm like, watch. I mean, those are the books I can't put down.
Right.
Which some are really cheesy, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is people I've really followed, and oh my, look at how they overcame and succumbed and all those things. So I'm going through Bono's right now. If y'all read the Bono book, Surrender.
I haven't.
I'm listening to it, but it's the same thing. Just the story behind their mission and their belief as Protestant Christians in Ireland and how they rose from the ashes there and the conflicts to become this crazy rock band and with longevity, but yet held true. And anyway, to the point. But my story is as unique to me, obviously, and these are stories that you don't script, you don't write, you don't plan. I was telling somebody the other day, maybe I posted something on LinkedIn about it's often those pitfalls that when I look back, it gives me a smile. Like when I smile looking back, it's usually based on some heartache or pain that you came through, right? And there's a little bit of a crack of a smile going, man.
Yeah.
Hey, it's good to be on the other side of those things, but most of ours, we were always fortunate. I grew up in the business world as a home builder and in construction, and that was a crazy direction in and of itself because I was a business major, worked in a bank, and was trying to after my college years was really in the finance world, and then I fell in love with the tangibility of construction. I loved leaving a job site every day and not looking at a piece of paper and a spreadsheet, but looking at a frame and bricks and stone and all the things that went into homes and projects. So we built 2 or 3 entities and a little enterprise in a regional market. After about 6 years with a big builder, learning the ropes, and all of that came to a glorious crash in 08, 09. Is really the story, and there's so many stories and there's so many lessons that came from that. But going through financial ruin, we were always thankful we had our health, right? My wife and I, our marriage made it through it. It was we struggled at times. She struggled with resentment for a lot of ambitious decisions that I made without consulting her. Learned a ton about how love and respect work in marriage and partnering with your wife, who women typically have a greater sense of intuition, which is very much a spirit element, right, where the Holy Spirit lives, and me not tapping into that led me to some decisions that were certainly regrettable in terms of just being too ambitious and young. And
I think that's an important aspect that you talked about right there, because entrepreneurs don't have the best track record in marriage.
Yeah,
It's just the truth.
This is true.
The Bible talks about you cannot serve 2 masters. So it's about priorities.
absolutely.
And I love hearing the stories as it pertains to family and marriage with business. But when you come through it, you make it through. And so I just want to honor you I'm proud of you that, you went through these hard times and you guys didn't give up on each other.
No, thank you. It's, and you come through stronger. I mean, there's just things that we don't struggle with now that we used to struggle with or would still struggle with had we not had those situations. But, I think at the end of the day, going through, it's interesting too, looking back even to school, we were talking about college a little earlier, but all of the group projects, especially at the university level, and all the group assignments, hey, start a business, hey, do this, hey, invest in the stock market, here's what you're going to do, here's your parameters, go do it. Every one of those, I always had an underlying fear that I was going to lose everything that they entrusted to me. And not that I wouldn't win the competition. I was trying to win, But my greatest fear was not coming in second or third. It was losing all the money and assets or whatever, and just and that's what happened, right? So it's like when I saw that happening in slow motion, real time for a period of 3 to 4 years, it just was that pit and the self-fulfilling nature of all that. And but I tell you, one of the just main lessons that I still carry with me today, and we're in a much different place today, and we can talk a little bit about how entrepreneurship really works with what I do now, right? And we'll talk about that. But it's one of the lessons that should give us so much comfort, right? Is what's the true fear? Like even back then, we had joy back then, even when we had nothing. We lived in a way too big house that we couldn't afford, that we couldn't sell. The real estate crash for a luxury home builder in a regional market was literally the recipe for disaster, and that's what we got caught in. But what's the greatest fear? And I just remember in the small town I was in, one of the it wasn't the National Enquirer that got everybody's attention from a gossip rag standpoint. It was the legal news, and everybody always wanted to go to the back to see who was doing what in the legal news, who got caught, who had to file, who had to do all these things. And so at the end of the day, if I was honest with myself, and I had to be, was I really concerned about food? No. Shelter? No. Clothing? No. I wasn't concerned about any of those things. The greatest fear was my reputation, because I had gotten involved in the community. And so, when God, I think when He and I knew that I was being worked on. I knew that I was in this furnace. I knew that I was going to come out stronger. Like I knew all that. If I came out, I would come out stronger. And but I just kind of had to boil it down to, what's my fear? Like, what are we afraid of, right? And that fourth, that we don't talk about reputation as one of your 3 basic needs, right? There's 3 basic needs in life physically, right? I would say there's probably 4. Relationship is probably the 4th that nobody talks about, right? I think we die without relationship. And I wasn't even concerned about that. I had great relationships back then. I was relationally wealthy in terms of had more than I needed, and cultivated those. Yeah. But it was the reputation component, which is all pride, right? And that was my big hang up. And when I finally let go of that, it was like, okay. Then there was some freedom and walking through, and then it was like, okay, well, nothing should produce that level of fear in me anymore. Nothing. Yeah. Because I've given up that, I've given up this, I'm not afraid of those 3 things. So, no, and I still think about that today, even when I don't care how much you make or what you do and how successful you are. I think we all had a propensity to really look at fear and provision. Men, especially, I think, is if you are the primary breadwinner, right, and provider, I think you really you have to stare those things in the face continually, but get real with it and go, wait, why am I? Yeah. Why did I wake up with a low level of fear this entire week? What's going on here? And just.
Yeah. That's a good word. There's it's actually the founder of Paycom Dallas, Jeff York. I was in this business class that he was president of, and he spoke, and he gave a whole talk on managing fear. And he said in Paycom, for the longest time, he didn't allow anyone to use the word stress. He said, that's awesome. That's not actually a thing. If you come to me and say I'm stressed, I'm going to say, no, you're not. And they had to say, Jeff, I'm fearful of this. Because stress is really you're just scared of something. And if someone's stressed, it's more, no, I'm scared I'm not going to hit my numbers, or I'm not going to provide for my family, I'm going to lose relationships. And so that fear piece and being able to manage fear as an entrepreneur, as a man, as husband, a father, is interesting, and is so important to how we move forward in day to day and winning the day we're currently in. Is, can you manage fear? So that's big time.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to be a part of a group, and I've this group has morphed into this over the last 4 to 5 years. But I meet every week with a group of guys in a kind of a big group, and then a smaller group setting where we talk about those emotions openly and honestly, with zero judgment, zero desire to fix each other, and just put it out there and bring it to light. And you wouldn't be surprised, but to your point, we go through a list of emotions. You can list 100 emotions, but there's probably 7 or 8 primary emotions.
Yeah.
Fear is absolutely on our list. And
Yeah.
it's shocking still how many of us go to fear on a weekly basis. And we just call it checking in. Where are you right now? Where are you? Not where you're going to be, where are you right now? And,
So good.
and
Awesome.
it's like, man, I'm afraid. And it kind of helps you figure it out once you say it.
Yeah.
Like, this is really fear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's a
anger's
lie.
on there, but anger's
Yeah.
typically, not always, but typically anger's a response to fear.
Yeah. It is.
So, yeah, I think a lot of what we deal with is the fear, but the moment you can label it, you're taking a step towards
Yes.
problem solving that fear and being like, wait a sec, I can actually stare this fear in the face
Yes.
and take it on.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
should give it a name and bring it out into the light,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
Right.
At the church we're going to, we had someone come in, the speaker, and she was talking to us, and we talked specifically about fear. And she asked everyone, she said, what is the one fear that we are all born with? And I didn't really know. And she said, the only fear you are born with is the fear of falling. As a baby, when a baby is dropped, it elicits a fear response. It cries, it yells, it screams. But that is the only fear that we're born with. So where did all the other fears come from? They had to have been learned. Who taught them to us? So it's amazing. People will often come to me and say, hey, I want to start this business, and they'll say, what do you think? I think it's a great idea. Go for it. And they never do anything with it. And it's because fear. Not fear that they were born with. But how many times when we start operating and living do we kind of tend toward that, well, it's just part of who I am. It kind of becomes part of our identity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've been through stuff, I've been through stuff, Chris has been through stuff. And man, it is a constant battle to fight that fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and the research has shown too that there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, but the research has shown the body does keep the score with prolonged fear, right? And so you look at, and I believe it. I mean, we've adopted several of our kids. We have 6 kids, 5 of which are adopted through the foster system. So it's part of our story. To rewind a little bit, all of that started happening, the foster care, when we were going through the worst financial times.
Oh, wow.
So I look back at the joy and the craziness, the uncertainty, and trying to grow a family through that, not being able to feed people. There were times literally we're shoving McDonald's across the counter after 2 years prior making more money than we knew what to do with. You go from one to the other. So, but we've studied a lot about the brain. There's one of the best researchers ever with brain development and how to overcome obstacles, and she dealt with kids from hard places. She called it, was Karen Purvis, right, at TCU, right here in Fort Worth, and she's world renowned. She's passed away, but and her studies, that's great for any parent and any kid, but helping them overcome those things that were and get unstuck in those places. Every time I talk to my kids, I'm really talking to myself. It's always a good gut check, right? I'm like, am I telling them something that I can't get past as well? And but we've noticed that the body, a prolonged exposure to those things, right, have an absolute connection to the biology of the body and how that works. And so anyway, it's all, which is really, I hate to say cool, but it's great to know that. Especially as a believer, when you pray for healing, it's like, let's pray for healing, right? But let's also find out what's going on, right? Many times in the Bible, right, Jesus was like, hey, go sin no more. It's like, well, what did that have to do with the fact that he was a paralytic? He knew something, right?
Yeah.
He knew something was going on there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it's been interesting to kind of press into that.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you say, and maybe it's not something that you discovered so much as it was something God showed you as you're going through those situations. What was God showing you about himself and about you through those situations, if you don't mind sharing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think showing me that taking me to the bottom, really, to go to show me that he's faithful and he's able to sustain and carry me through it theoretically the bottom, right? And there's a lot of people whose bottom is a lot lower than where I was, but
Right.
for us, yeah, we were at the bottom, relatively speaking, and so to show me that his care, concern, and provision still exist even at the bottom was huge. To overcome some of those fears that were well, I think, deeply seated in me. I grew up one of two kids in a successful upper class, middle to upper class family. My father was an attorney, successful attorney, and we were just without want.
Mm.
So to be in a position where we were very much in want and reaching out was just was good, right? Back to relationship. I probably pressed into that fourth need a lot more and I had a couple of really good friends back in the day that had either been through or were going through the same thing, and those relationships now are the strongest I have.
Wow.
And will always will, because of what you go through. It's kind of the foxhole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Locking arms together.
Oh man, as a Christian, we've talked about a lot of that too. Because
Yeah.
I was when I met you, I think we were just coming out of the 7-year period. It was about a 7-year period. Until we kind of looked above and we're like, okay, I think this is over. I think that chapter is over, right? And a lot of it had to do with success in my new venture and stuff. But
So you were a home builder.
Mhm.
You went through a valley. Things burned up, turned into ashes. And then what transpired from that point forward?
Mhm.
What happened after that?
Through the advice of some really close friends around the end of 2009, over a campfire, we were at the bottom, right? Like I said, and no real clear pathway out doing what I was doing. I had some ideas, but the hole was so big. We looked at one of them made a suggestion to press into some college relationships that I had, and at the time I'd like to say that I really I definitely was an entrepreneur, started my own thing and grew it really quickly. I've always described it as being very, very widespread roots. They just didn't have any depth. Right? The tree looked beautiful, right? There just wasn't any depth. And so I would have, I'd like to say I sat there and researched a bunch of industries, took a bunch of personality, what am I best suited for? But I've told this 100 times, I would have shoveled horse manure for 8 years if you said, hey, you're going to feed your family and you're going to pay your bills.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Then I'll shovel. I'll just keep shoveling. So, not that what I do is like that, but one of those key relationships, he had to be a roommate of mine, and Mike Hotchkiss, and so I went to work for his father's insurance agency at the time, selling commercial insurance. We do everything, but about 85% of what we do is business insurance, property casualty. And so I learned how to speak it, I learned how to write it, I learned, and I really dove in because I'm kind of putting my brain back on a little bit in terms of now relationships in construction is the hardest thing. I mean, problems are hard sometimes to figure out, but construction is just critical path. This goes before this comes after this. That's easy. You can build anything when you've done it a couple times, but and certainly in a residential setting, but which is where most of our business was focused. But the relationships became the hardest thing and one of the most taxing. So as back to a little bit, I was fighting my own battles financially. I'm still fighting the emotional drain of very difficult customers in a very difficult market. We were spending $1 million on a home, and it was eating. Stacey said, my wife said, this is going to kill you, and it was. It would have probably killed me. So, but it has turned out. But I told people back in the construction days, this is what I would say I was created to do, but I was created for that. I love this, right? Which was good. I was in a good industry at the time, and but now looking where I am now, it's insurance and risk management, but the brain work, the wrangling, the creativity, working with CEOs and CFOs at all levels and all sizes of organizations has been the most rewarding and fun experience, because I have gotten to see how people, how do they make money and how do you get successful in business? And I see people taking on, risks every day, either to start the thing or to grow the thing, in some cases, or to shut something down. And how do I best do any of these things? How do I sell it? And we literally get involved in every one of those phases of the business cycle. And it's fascinating. And it's nerdy. But when I finally learned and soaked in the knowledge, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I see a path forward. And it's pretty cool because I'm using my brain, a little bit of my college experience in finance. We just finance risk is all we do. So it's, I could talk hours about that, but that new direction has meant the world, right? And because I think I enjoyed it so much, I pressed in and just.
So you think that, because you said, you thought that you were created for construction. So do you think that God just changed your heart? Or is that still, do you still think that that's what your identity, so to speak, was, and it still might be, or is? I mean, where does that land?
I think it sounds super shallow for me to say I was created for for a vocation.
I used to think I was created to be a trumpet player, so
Hey, you get your major in it, so
I did get a major in this.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't know. Created. I was. What are you created for? Right.
Right.
We're not going to talk theologically right now, but vocationally, I think, and I have 6 kids, and so as I talk to, I have one that's a freshman in college now. So as I talk and we start thinking a little bit about careers, I'm like, I got a lot of advice, right? And if they'll take it, who knows? But it's like these are your skills. This is, why did insurance and risk management hit a nerve for me? I don't know if it's insurance and risk management in and of itself from an industry standpoint, right? I think it's I just always call it mental gymnastics. It's the mental gymnastics to go, and I guess in a broader sense, I'm just charged with helping protect something that someone spent a long time to grow. And let's just call it the cash in their business and their livelihood. At the end of the day, it's cash, right? I'm just going to protect that. So from fires and lawsuits and employee harassment, I mean, whatever it is, I think I enjoy that probably. You can put the label of insurance on it, but being in the position, and this is kind of my why, right? Being in the position, why? Not that I sought out this, like here, I'm going to go into this because of what happened. No, I would have, back to my manure analogy. Now that I'm on this side of it, I think I look at it going, oh, probably the reason I enjoy it so much is that I was so vulnerable, I was so exposed, I was insured to the hilt back in my business, and then I dropped everything. I built somebody at $1.8 million house without a single permit, without a single stitch of insurance, without a single license, because Texas would allow you to do that back in the day. And in most cases, sometimes in Texas, there are places you can still do that. And so, and I have a lot of construction clients now, so I get to talk with experience about those days. And as appropriate, I share the hardships with my clients, and most of them know that I used to be on their side of the table. But I think protecting that now is what gives me so much enjoyment, because I'm like, man, I know.
Yeah.
And if I can help you guys do this economically and in a creative way, but comprehensive, and we all win. And it's been fun.
Yeah. So, what does it look like for you these days, being a kingdom entrepreneur? Mm-hmm. What does that look like now? What does your heart for carrying the kingdom into your day-to-day, what's that look like for you now?
Yeah. Golly, that's such a good question, Christian. I shared with you a couple days ago that I was actually going to go, and I am going tomorrow, to a Kingdom in the Business workshop. It's crazy that we say this today, but because I want to learn more, and I've been to a couple before, but I really want to learn more from people that are really succeeding doing it. So here's practically where I see where I'm at, and I guess the methodology that I currently have adopted. So I'm fortunate enough to work for an organization that is run by believers, right? Mm-hmm. That is definitely espouses that family comes first, right? And so it's one thing to say that; it's another to put that in practice. I don't work for a nonprofit; I work for a for-profit enterprise. Yes, you want to do what's best for the customer, but at the end of the day, we're not publicly traded, but we do have a duty to provide as much net income as we can, right? So to say that the answer to your question is one word, balance, is an understatement. But I think practically speaking in my world, so back to entrepreneurship, like I joined an organization. We have 170 employees over four Texas cities. We have 11 partners, of which I'm one, partner owners. It's one thing to espouse it and talk about it, right, as an employee recruiting tool. Oh my gosh, this sounds great. And they really, and we have people from all different types of faith and no faith in our organization. And I love that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to really espouse that, practically speaking, I have to go back to what we've already talked about. Like, people get wrapped around the axle because of money or lack thereof all the time. And they compromise their faith in small and big ways, meaning, yeah, it's family first until I'm going to lose money because of something you did. Or if you have an issue going on and you're not going to be available to help me go do what I need to do, then I'll forget you and find somebody else because I've got to get to this goal.
Yeah.
And what the person just told you is, hey, I can't do this because of this reason. It's not an excuse. I really do have funeral, wedding, sickness. And so it's like, where's the, I don't know, every time I hear about Christian entrepreneurship, sometimes I do kind of roll my eyes a little bit. And I'll be honest with you, the reason is I think there's so many times when believers operate with an incredible lack of mercy with their people and what they're going through and justify it all the same. And it's like, it kind of gets back to mercy. Like, how do I show steadfast love to this person who's going through that, knowing that will probably cost me money? And that's, to me, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's not, so I very much feel like I have my own entrepreneurship within the organization. I mean, my own entity. I do. I don't legally, but it's really, I've always operated that way. And I think it's been key to my success, but there's people that actually work on my stuff alone now. And it's like, and that's a team. And how do I take our company values and really and show them it's really true.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, man, practically speaking, I think it comes down to mercy, mercy, mercy all the time. It's like, hey, man. And they're smart. They sense it when it's not available. When doesn't exist, they sense it, which breeds resentment and all that things.
Absolutely. That's so good.
Really
I think, as entrepreneurs, I personally, especially as leaders within an organization, we have more than one client. I mean, I'm not just talking about more than one number, but maybe more than one type, because we've got our clients who are helping us. We're helping them with solutions. They're paying for those solutions. It's enabling us to take care of our families. You've got also internal clients. Those are the people working for you. Mm-hmm. And then I'd say you almost can consider some of your partners as clients. Mm-hmm. And so you're absolutely right. If you say you are a certain way, it's just like, goodness gracious, so much in my life goes back to how I parent and just family life. You learn so much as a parent, as a dad, as a husband, as a brother, as a sister, wife, whatever it is. You learn so much in that translates 100% into how you live your life as a business person. So you cannot be, this is just my opinion, you cannot be different. Well, you can. But I guess I'm just trying to say, you can't be different in business and home. Mm-hmm. You can't treat your clients who are helping you produce your revenues and paying the bills different than your internal people who are helping to do the same, just in a different fashion. And so when I think about you and I look at how you live, if I looked at your family and I saw you, acting a certain way that was in conflict with how you act in the business world, I go, well, that's not authentic. Mm-hmm. That ruins your credibility. Mm-hmm. Your integrity goes in the flash. But when I see you and I see how you live your life as a family, Ross, you are a generous man. That's just the truth of it. You are a generous man. And you're generous in your family, and you're generous in your business dealings. And I just love that because there's authenticity there. Mm. I think as entrepreneurs, we have an opportunity.
Mhm.
Some might say a responsibility or a duty, but we have an opportunity to be people of integrity who are authentic.
Mhm.
And when we can be authentic, it's a passion for me personally that, I think looking at how you live your life, boy, I don't know if I know anyone more authentic than you, but you wouldn't have been that way had you not gone through all of the fire that you went through personally and as a family.
That's just what I was about to say. Like it came, I call it road rash, right? And so there's not an entrepreneur out there, I don't think, a successful entrepreneur, right? And let's just say that when we say successful, we're talking about the size and reach of the organization and that they're actually a growing enterprise. Maybe we just define it that way.
Sure.
That entrepreneur has road rash. I mean, there's something that where they're a little bit. I've always likened it to the square the block that you push down the hill, right? It's like, man, it is bumpy at first, right? I've talked about this 100 times, and at some point you push it down the hill and it gets enough speed, those edges are going to get knocked off. It's going to roll a lot smoother and better. In a perfect world, it's going to become a wheel, right? But guess what? I mean, that core. Hopefully that core has never changed in the center of that block, right? It's just continued to. And so that was me for sure. I was definitely periods of my life very zealous and and very square, but that road rash just really knocked some of those corners off to go, hey, what's really important here? And you mentioned the word authentic. I mean, I think the lack of fear breeds all the authenticity because people usually they put up the fronts, right? Because of fear. It's like, hey, this is mine and I've got to protect it at all costs. And it's like, it's not yours. I mean, somebody challenged me the other day, like, what's yours, right? Or what is God's? Whichever, how you want to ask the question. Well, it's all his. That's right. He owns everything in creation except one thing. This is back to your question earlier, right? It's like, what's the greatest fear you're born with? Or what's and he goes, what is the one thing God doesn't own? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm racking my brain. He goes, your sin. He doesn't own your sin. You own your sin. He doesn't own that. You do, right? It's been paid for, all that, but it's like you own that. So, I mean, and we know the scriptures, right, that he created everything. So it's like if he did, it's all his. The invisible and visible, it's all his. My relationships, my kids, it's all his. But I think the authenticity comes from a realization of that and a lack of fear that I'm going to lose what I have. I can lose it tomorrow.
What a word.
But it's getting my head around that has taken a long time, right? And that I don't need people as much as I used to in the sense of the neediness, right? I want those relationships, but I want them because they're super fun and cool, not because I absolutely have to have that and it's going to cause me to lose something. Because man, I have people that I still I relate to that when there's a threat of losing something, you see the grip, right? And you feel the grip. It's like, hey, it's like I'm not trying to take you. I promise.
Yeah. That's so good.
No.
Wow, what a word.
I know. Like, I wish I had my.
From a lack of fear.
Authenticity comes from a lack of fear.
It's so true.
It does,
My
because
goodness.
when
There's a sermon in there, Ross. Just so
you have a church, right? So maybe that could be your next sermon topic.
Yeah, maybe so. Our little crew, our little tribe.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
So how are we doing on time?
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
10 minutes or so. Okay, good. We can edit these things, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
As long as you give me enough space, I can edit anything out.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you're good at your job and
So-
you do what you do.
So we've got enough space, so just while we're already about to edit this out, that's barbecue in Fort Worth.
No, we're keeping that question in.
Oh, we're keeping the questions in. Okay, that has to be in. So we'll come back to that.
That's not every question because it's been asked already
It's been
at
asked so many
everyone.
times.
So that's now the fun question.
Okay.
Okay.
I will be prepared. I'll actually, like you didn't. You didn't ask me that. I'm going to remember it for later.
Okay.
It's probably the most important question.
No, it
because
is.
Every relationship is based on the foundation of barbecue.
Yeah,
I'm glad you just agree with that because most people push back a little bit with
No.
Christian on it, but
we had it last night at church. We
See?
eat every time we get
Hallelujah.
together, and we
See?
had.
It's the modern breaking of bread right there.
It's
is what I think.
effectively holy manna.
Yeah.
The wine has been replaced with barbecue sauce. So
okay, so
Barbecue and pickleball.
there you go.
ooh,
I've never played
Pickleball is
pickleball.
really growing right now.
So are you a
built-
pickleball player
We
then?
built a pickleball court at the house.
Are you serious?
We did.
Wow.
Where is it at?
Down in the lower level, below
Yeah.
that last retaining wall down there by the
Okay,
creek. And we did it for a host of reasons. I had played one time in my life, but I loved it. My wife actually had the suggestion. But it has been the biggest community creating event, which is what we wanted. And I can't tell you how excited I get when people. I come home and there's people in my driveway, and we don't hear them, see them. They're just down there playing, and it's actually kind of hidden. But I'll go down and join them sometimes. But it's just become a cultural community event in our town, and I love it. I absolutely love it because when the weather does clear up a little bit, it's pool, pickleball, barbecue,
Yes.
and it's pizza, whatever, and it just it gives us a reason to have people come over, and like I said, it's a tool.
That's awesome.
Tool to
I love that. I've never played pickleball.
Dude, there's
I think I'd
places
be
like
good at it. I was really good at
Chicken that
racquetball.
are everywhere.
Oh, it's incredible, and it's good for older people. I'm a
Is
good
it?
friend here.
Why
But
is
no,
it?
it's just because it's tennis without quite the running and knee risk of
Okay.
injury. And
So you're not going to be diving?
no,
Oh.
I would highly suggest you don't dive.
Okay.
You can.
You can.
Okay.
My court has these little. It's a pickleball surface. It's tiles. It has these little bitty riser bumps on it for a pickleball.
Oh.
And if you hit, it's gonna
Leave a mark.
you'll leave mark.
Lose some skin, probably.
I hear it will leave a mark.
Just never quite dove yet. Something I find interesting is from when you and I talked and with our good old friend Dr. Brian Bird,
Yeah,
a lot of these entrepreneurs keep mentioning relationships.
absolutely.
Have you noticed that theme
Yeah.
popping up?
I do.
A lot of people have talked about relationships being so important. We talked about with Brian how people are the currency of heaven. I'm noticing that trend of that to be this kingdom entrepreneur in this world. Relationships are probably actually what set us apart the most, and having the authenticity in those relationships is actually what is setting the kingdom entrepreneur apart from the rest of the world. So just this is like a simple question, but like how do you, besides just like doing what you say you're going to do and like making sure your moral authority with your words is on point, like how do you with your people, because I'm just getting curious because of relationship, how do you with your people, like what do you do on a day-to-day basis just to give them mercy, make them feel loved, make them feel like a part of your organization? Because I feel like I've actually probably struggled with that sometimes. I run at like 200 miles per hour. I just do. And there have been times in my past that I've probably run people over or left them behind. And that's something I've had to become aware of. And so, like, how would you say that you have integrated your people into your organization on a day-to-day level?
Man, that's $1 million question. And we touched on it a minute ago, but that's something that starts. As much as we want to talk about mercy, I don't think you can overstate hiring correctly, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is a make it or, well, I won't say make it or break it. It could be,